Hey there, good morning. Welcome to Coffee with Connie. I'm Connie Fuksa. And so I like to talk to you guys a couple of times a week about things that have to do with real estate, but not only real estate, but things that have to do with business and personal success. So today we're talking about some real estate issue that I like most often to talk to you guys about things that you bring up, that you have questions about. And so most recently, sorry about that, I broke one of my number one rules, turning off some notifications. But today I wanted to talk to you specifically about something with respect to real estate that happens to a lot of people. So when you originally first purchased your house, you weren't married. You and your now spouse purchased the house and you were not married. So as a lady, your name may still be in your maiden name. And so now, since let's say you got married 6 months after you bought your house, maybe a year, maybe longer, but now you own that property together and now you're married. So let's talk about what that looks like, because I had a really good friend who I was talking to recently who asked me this question. So is there something that needs to be done since we're married now to change the title of my property? And so we talked about it a little bit, and really there's not, as long as when you go to sell the property, they're going to ask you for a copy of your marriage certificate because they're going to need to verify that what about your name change. And so when anyone who is doing your closing does their research, they're going to find out that you're, maybe the contract's in your married name, but the ownership of the property is in your maiden name. And so how will that affect that transfer? And so it's not that complicated. Whenever there's a change, the title company is just going to require that they have some documentation so that they can document that change. So anyone doing a search of that property ownership, they can tell that transfer was still the same person and not someone else. But here's what I wanted to talk about today. When you change that ownership, or when you took title to that property, did you take title in a way that has the ownership affected the way you're interested in? And here's what I really want to talk about. It's not as much about your name, and so that can be qualified and made the adjustment when you go to sell it. But what about the ownership, how you own the property together? So the reason I want to talk about this for a minute is because this is really distinct. So if you purchase that property as two individuals that weren't married, and in the deed that transfers the ownership from the seller to you, it wasn't designated how you wanted to own that property. That makes a really big difference. So here's the example. In the person that asked me the question that we were talking about, I did some research and looked at the deed transferring that ownership from that seller to them. Now, here's where you really want to make sure that the company doing your closing knows what they're doing, is very on top of things, is somebody you trust, and trust and respect, because they are going to take care of the ownership of your property. Your mortgage lender takes care of the loan that you're getting to borrow the money for that property. The real estate agent walks you through everything up to closing, but that company that's doing the closing is the one that actually guarantees the ownership. And in this particular case, what I want you to understand is this was two people who bought a piece of property, they weren't married, and whoever did the deed transferring the property into their names did not identify how they wanted to own the property. And since they didn't identify how they wanted to own the property in Maryland, this property is in Maryland, the law says if it's not identified how you want to own the property with the person you're purchasing with, then it automatically reverts to what we call tenants in common. So tenants in common is that each individual person owns a percentage interest in the property. So if you're talking about two people and it's not stated, then those two people own 50-50. Now, why does that matter now that you're married? Because even though you're married, those two people still own this property 50-50. And here I'm going to give you an example why that may be a concern. Something happens to one of those people, that person's interest goes into their estate. It does not automatically go to the other person who's now their spouse. Because as the spouse, you would think, once that person passes, that property automatically goes to me. I don't have to worry about anything. It does not. If it's not listed in your deed how you want to own the property, then it is automatically tenants in common. So the person who passed, their interest goes into their estate. So who would have an interest in their estate? You as the spouse, maybe a parent, maybe children, maybe brothers and sisters. And they all may know, yes, it's your property, and yes, that they need to sign off on it, but they have to sign off, and you have to go through that process. And at the time you're grieving and dealing with all the other things, you don't want to have to deal with this. Here's another example. In that same scenario, you each own the property 50-50. Let's say the owner that passes away had some type of horrible car accident, and the person that maybe they had the accident with sued them, and a judgment was filed against the person. If you own that property 50-50, that judgment attaches to the property with at least the respect that that person owned the property. So if you go to try to sell the property, or put a new mortgage on it, or do anything with the ownership of that property, that judgment's going to have to be addressed. If you own the property as husband and wife, what's called tenants by the entirety, and the judgment is only filed against one of the owners, it does not affect the ownership. So these are really big, significant things. And it all goes back to when you purchased the property, you trusted the lender, the title company that was referred to you by the realtor, and the title company that was referred to you maybe by your lender to just do all the paperwork and do it right. And the person I'm speaking about said to me, well, they never talked to me about this. No, they didn't talk to you about this because they didn't do the complete job to find out what you needed. And so now we're having to go back. Thank God we talked about this. So we're having to go back and do a deed to re-identify their ownership, not only with her married name, which isn't a big significant concern, but now with the ownership addressing the ownership. So I really want you to take this advice in that just as important to you as the real estate agent that's going to show you your dream home and walk you through the steps of the purchase, just as important as the mortgage lender who is going to loan you the money to buy that dream home that you're giving all your personal credit information to, just as important is the company that's doing the closing, that they are making sure your ownership is protected and it's what you want to happen. Because not all title companies, just like lenders and realtors, are created equal. And you need to make sure that you yourself understand that this company has a good reputation, is very good about explaining things, walks you through things that need to be addressed, and that you also are proactive in asking questions. Don't just rely on someone referring someone to you that maybe doesn't give all of the protection that you need. And in this scenario, we're going to go back and take care of this for her, but it's something really important that you need to think about. So if you have questions about this or anything else, reach out and let me know, because these kind of questions are the things that people want to understand. And I can only do that if you guys ask me those questions. So I really appreciate you taking the time to tune into Coffee with Connie. I'm Connie Fuksa, and I come to you with more than 30 years worth of title company ownership experience. I recently sold my company, and now my passion is to help you understand this process. So please reach out and let me know about any of those questions. Go to our website and download some information that may be helpful to you, ConnieFuksa.com. And I hope you guys have a fantastic day. Hit that share button so you can share the information we've been talking about today with your friends, and I'll talk to you real soon. Thanks for tuning in to Coffee with Connie. I'm Connie Fuksa. Bye-bye.